We meet at a time when the world has been reminded that a waterway is not merely geography. It is power, it is commerce, it is food, it is fuel, it is life. The world saw the Strait of Hormuz become the center of confrontation between Iran and the United States. It saw the Islamabad Memorandum of Understanding announced with Pakistan's mediation try to reopen that artery of global economy and halt a wider descent into war. The United States and Iran agreed to cease hostilities and reopen the strait, through which roughly 1/5 of the world's oil and liquefied natural gas normally transits. What was the closing? Let us call it by its name. It was the weaponization of a waterway. It was the conversion of a maritime passage into an instrument of compulsion. It was an economic weapon deployed not by mushroom cloud, but by blockade, insurance premiums, empty tankers, rising prices, and trembling markets. Just as no ceasefire and no peace can be achieved between the United States and Iran with the Strait of Hormuz shut, similarly, how can any ceasefire between India and Pakistan hold without the Indus Water Treaty being restored? From Hormuz, we must turn to the Indus, because what is true of the Strait of Hormuz is true with even greater intimacy and greater cruelty of the Indus Basin. A strait may carry the oil of nations. This carries the life of nations. India had announced its intention to abandon the Indus Waters Treaty as part of their unjustified assault on Pakistan last summer. It is a war that is internationally recognized as one that India lost. Even India's greatest allies can't help but marvel at the number of planes downed by Pakistan. Pakistan, emerging victorious from the David versus Goliath scale conflict, has reshaped the geopolitics of the region. The concept of propping up India as a net security provider in the region has been abandoned, and the world has moved on. However, I must caution, Pakistan has stuck to the ceasefire, which were to be discussed, whereas Pakistan has stuck to the terms of the ceasefire. India has not. There were clear and explicit terms of the ceasefire which were to be discussed at a meeting in a neutral location where all friction points were to be addressed. We were to return to the status ante in the meantime, which would of course include India returning to its obligations under the Indus Waters Treaty prior to this dispute. It has not. Therefore, a year on, it is a legitimate question for Pakistan to answer. Do we still abide by a ceasefire that leaves far too many questions unanswered? Just as one could not imagine warring parties agreeing to a ceasefire, let alone peace, without the Strait of Hormuz, how can Pakistan be expected to sustain a ceasefire when India continues to pose an existential threat? Let there be no ambiguity in Islamabad, in New Delhi, in Washington, in Beijing, in London, at the United Nations. This is not a technical dispute. This is not a clerical quarrel between commissioners. This is not a matter of paperwork, hydrology, or administrative abeyance. This is the weaponization of water. The Indus Water Treaty was not a favor given to Pakistan. It was a solemn international settlement. It was brokered in the shadow of partition because the rivers of Punjab and Sindh could not be left to the mercy of anger. The World Bank states plainly that the treaty allocates the western rivers, the Indus, Jhelum, Chenab, to Pakistan, and the eastern rivers to India, while allowing each side limited uses on rivers allocated to the other. So when India says it will place this treaty in abeyance, India is not merely meetings. It is striking at an international compact that has survived wars, crises, mobilizations, and generations of hostility. And what is the Indus to Pakistan? It is not a river on a map. It is our bread, it is our cotton, it is our wheat, it is our fields of Sindh, our orchards of Punjab, our waters of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, our channels of Balochistan. It is our farmer at dawn. It is our mothers drawing water, our children eating roti, our worker in the mill, our prayer before. To cut the Indus is not to pressure a government, it is to threaten a people. Pakistan has over 200 million souls. No state, no prime minister, no army, no court, no parliament, no political party, and no generation has the right to stand silent while the lifeline of those souls is placed under the shadow of coercion. We must therefore speak with the seriousness that this situation demands. Pakistan must treat every step towards the strangulation of its waters as a national security assault, not merely a diplomatic irritant, not as a footnote in a foreign ministry brief, not as another file to be moved from one desk to another. It must be treated as an attack on the foundations of the state. That does not mean that Pakistan seeks war. We do not seek war. We have buried too many sons. We have seen too much blood in this region. We know the price of adventurism. We know the trade of miscalculation. But peace is not surrender. Restraint is not paralysis. Diplomacy is not silence. And patience is not permission. If India wants the world to take its threats seriously, Pakistan must compel the world to take our survival seriously. Our message must be clear. Any move to block, divert, manipulate, or potentially politically control Pakistan's rightful waters will not be treated as routine engineering. Every survey, every tender, every canal proposal, every dam design, every concrete step towards changing the flow guaranteed to Pakistan must be treated as a strategic warning signal. It must trigger a whole of the state response, legal, diplomatic, economical, political, informational, national security preparedness, and even military response. Pakistan should not allow India to climb the ladder of coercion while we remain trapped at the bottom, issuing statements of concern that says the final strangulation of water is an existential threat, cannot remain silent when the strangulation is prepared, financed, designed, tendered, and normalized. A nation does not wake up only when the riverbed is dry. A nation wakes up when the first stone is moved to dam our future. It is only rational to ask, what are we doing in terms of military preparedness as India continues to pursue her star? But let me also say this. Pakistan must not make a single move that concedes India's illegal position. We must not behave as though India's decision is fait accompli. We must not build policy on the assumption that the treaty is dead. We must not rush to create downstream substitute dams in a way that tells the world India has succeeded, now Pakistan is adjusting. Or give the impression that we were victorious on the field but have surrendered on the banks of the river. No. Pakistan's position must remain immovable. The treaty lives. India's obligations are live. Pakistan's rights live. The Indus does not become India's instrument because India has discovered the language of abeyance. Projects and dams already approved before India's unilateral decision should continue on their own merit. Pakistan must complete what Pakistan has already planned. We must strengthen our dams, reservoirs, barrages, canals, and flood management systems because Pakistan needs water security regardless of India's aggression. But let us be precise. There is a difference between strengthening Pakistan and accepting India's blackmail. There is a difference between national resilience and diplomatic surrender. There is a difference between preparing for scarcity and legitimizing theft. We must move on a war footing for water conservation, of course. We must modernize irrigation. We must reduce waste in canals. We must invest in drip irrigation, smart agriculture, lining where needed, telemetering, groundwater regulation, recycling, and urban water discipline. We must make every drop count, not because India has a right to steal our water, but because Pakistan has a duty to respect its own future. We must explore every source outside the scope of the treaty. Desalination of our coasts, water recycling for our cities, climate-resilient water storage, regional water cooperation, and even the long-term feasibility of bringing water from Central Asia through negotiated corridors and sovereign agreements. Let engineers dream, let planners calculate, let diplomats negotiate, and let the state act with imagination. But do not confuse resilience with retreat. The Indus Water Treaty must be defended in every forum. The World Bank, the United Nations, international courts, and arbitrary bodies, friendly capitals, Muslim capitals, Western capitals, African capitals, and Asian capitals. Pakistan must internationalize the principle, not merely the grievance, because the world now needs new law. International law has rules for sea. Straits used for international navigation are governed by transit passage principles, and ships and aircrafts enjoy a right of transit passage that shall not be impeded. International water law also rests on the equitable and reasonable utilization, prevention of significant harm, and prior notification of measures that may adversely affect other states' sharing of water courses. International humanitarian law recognizes that water installation and irrigation systems are indispensable for civilian survival. And the ICRC has warned that the deprivation of water as a method of warfare is strictly prohibited. Yet the age we are entering demands more. We need a new international convention against the weaponization of waterways. It must apply to maritime choke points like Hormuz, to transboundary rivers like the Indus. It must prohibit the use of civilian water dependency as a coercive instrument. It must create emergency injunctions against unilateral treaty suspensions. It must impose automatic international scrutiny on projects that threaten downstream survival. It must recognize that in a climate-stressed century, water coercion is not merely friendly conduct. It is aggression by other means. The 20th century feared the bomb, so the 21st century must also fear the faucet controlled by a hostile hand. And to our Indian neighbors, I say this: you cannot build greatness on the thirst of another people. You cannot call yourself a civilization while threatening another civilization's river. You cannot speak of democracy while placing millions under hydrological siege